Hey folks, it's Kevin here from the Red Caps. We're in the beginning of June 2026, and I've read about 17 books thus far this year, and I thought I would break down how they all stacked up and maybe it'd be something that you'd be interested in. Before we dive in, a couple of quick disclaimers. First, almost all these books I consumed as audiobooks. That's my go to format. However, a few of them I think do translate better as ebooks or physical copies, and several of them I did switch partway through or kind of read while listening at the same time. Um, and secondly, this is all completely subjective. A lot of these books were ranked much higher on pages like Goodreads than what I've ranked them. So that said, you know, take this with a grain of salt. I did finish every one of these books and I found something valuable or interesting in all of them. So none of them are bad, but there are levels to how strongly I would recommend them. And this is what we're going to talk about. So we're going to start at the bottom of the tier and work our way up. So the only book I read so far this year that I cannot recommend is The War of Art. I gave this a 2.75 out of 5. It's a self-help book for creatives. It's got a really good core message, but that core message could have been a blog post rather than a book. It felt like 30 minutes of actual useful advice that got stretched out to a 3-hour book. There was just way too much filler. So I can't recommend this book. Some books that I can recommend with caveats. The first one I'm going to mention is The Sword of Kaigen. I really liked it. It's a fantasy book. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. It's got a very interesting setting, an amazing magic system, combat that is top notch, a very cinematic combat. The author's great at combat. Um, the problem is the pacing. It felt like this was meant to be a multi book series that the publisher declined doing multiple books for, so it got crammed all into a single volume. If you can get past that uneven pacing, the characters are great and the story is pretty cool, but it is a little bit off putting how the pacing of this book is. Next book that I recommend with caveats is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a legend, it's amazing. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. The humor is amazing. The digs at society norms are great. It's infinitely quotable. But if you're like me, you were probably looking back at it with very rose tinted, nostalgic glasses. And when you read it now, the story is honestly pretty weak. If you've never read it before, read it just so you get the jokes and the pop culture references and you can engage in those conversations. If you have read it, maybe leave the nostalgia in the past because it did feel significantly weaker reading it again as an adult. The next book is There Is No Anti-Memetics. That's a hard word to say. Division. Gave this a 3.0 out of 5. Absolutely amazing sci-fi concept. I thought it was crazy, the idea, and it was a really interesting read. Just doesn't stick the landing. The ending was incredibly unsatisfactory. Uh, it's tough to recommend the audiobook for this one. It's probably one that you should read. There's a lot of technical jargon that is all very similar sounding, so you can get lost a little bit. If you read it, I think you get more out of the written word on this one. Check it out if you like the idea of the Black Mirror mixed with Lovecraftian horror. That's the sales pitch. I just didn't think it stuck the landing really. Next up is The Anxious Generation. I gave this one a 3.75 out of 5. For me, this is a must read if you are around kids. And I actually do mean read because this book is full of charts, so don't listen to this one. But if you're around kids, especially around the age of like 8 to 13, and maybe even more, especially so if you have young girls, you should really read this book. It vividly hits home the just crazy impact that social media, phones, and tablets have on a young person's mental health. You can probably guess at what the conclusions are because it's something that we've all been talking about recently. But I think the studies and the stories that they tell in this book are very powerful. If you're not around kids this age, maybe give it a pass. But I still think it'd be interesting to read. So that's my caveat on it. But it was a very good book, very powerful. And yeah, check it out. The next one is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. I believe this is also a trilogy. It's the first book of the trilogy, I should say. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. It's got really cool world building. The plot itself is a little bit predictable. It's an underdog competence story, but it's paced really well. It's got a very cool twist in its world building about how the social powers and the hierarchy of people are laid out. Here is my pitch for you on whether you should read it or not. If this phrase that I'm about to say sounds interesting, go pick up the book. It's a pirate story where they sail on warships built out of the bones of an extinct dragon race that, spoilers, might not be extinct. But really cool book, very cool story. Check it out. The next one is a short story. It's called A Short Stay in Hell. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's a philosophical horror story where a man gets sent to hell, and the hell is displayed as a infinitely large library, infinitely many stories down, stories up, and he's not allowed to leave hell until he finds a very specific book that contains his life story told perfectly, kind of like 1,000,000,000 gazillion monkeys with 1,000,000,000 gazillion typewriters. One of them has managed to type out his story perfectly. He has to find that book. There are, for a very short book, it's jam packed with really cool concepts. You get really invested in the characters and the things that are going on, but then it just kind of ends, and the ending is deeply unsatisfactory. But maybe that's an allegory to life overall. It did do its job, though. I was thinking about this book long after I finished it. So if you could handle the fact that the ending might leave you feeling a little frustrated, but you want something that'll make you think, this book was quite cool. All right, we move up a tier. We are now in the strong recommendation tier list. And two books in this one are Troy and Odyssey, books 8 and 9 of this list thus far. I ranked them 4.25 out of 5 and 4.0 out of 5, respectfully. Stephen Fry wrote these books. He narrates them. His narration is amazing. I could listen to Stephen Fry read me the phone book. But he is closing off his Greek mythology series with these two books. The entire series is definitely well worth a listen if you're into, the stories of ancient Greece and the pantheon and the heroes and the crazy adventures they went on. He does a really awesome job of pulling from multiple sources and kind of smoothing out the timeline to make sure that all the inconsistencies between these different stories kind of gets flattened out, and you really get a sense that he just loves this topic. The sound of just pure joy as he's reading it, and you can tell he's really into it, is there. If you like listening to somebody really wax over something that they're deeply into, you'll enjoy this whole series of books. And if you like Greek myth, it's also right there for you. Read these before you go and watch that Odyssey movie that's coming out this summer. I think you'll enjoy it. Next up is The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music by David Grohl. Gave this one a 4.25 out of 5. David Grohl's probably my favorite musician of all time, and this is an autobiography where he tells his story, and he's the one narrating the story in the audiobook. The entire time you're listening to him talk, he has a tone that reminds me of a child who just can't believe how awesome everything is. He seems to be entirely grateful and never taking it for, never expecting anything and just being amazed when all this stuff keeps happening around him. Nothing's taken for granted. If you want a genuine look at somebody who I think is awesome and many people consider to be the nicest guy in rock and roll, it's really good autobiography and has lots of cool stories about other famous musicians being intermixed around that I think almost anybody would find something in there that they like. Next book is Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. I gave this one a 4.25 out of 5. Coming into this book, the big question was, hey, can Matt Dinniman write a book that's not Dungeon Crawler Carl and keep everybody interested? The answer turns out to be yes. It starts off a bit slow in the first chapter or two, but then he kind of hits his stride, and his classic humor and character work and his ability to make you care about all the supporting characters as much as you care about the main character completely kicks in. It's got a lot of the same formula that you would find in a Dungeon Crawler Carl story. So he's not abandoning that formula that he's kind of worked out, but it's a different setting, and it's still got all the humor. It's talks a lot about gamer culture and this commentary on human nature in general. If you enjoy funny sci-fi and pop culture references, check it out. Very cool book. Next one was The Old Man and the Sea. I gave this one a 4.0 out of 5. It's a classic for a reason. It's a very short story. It's powerful. It gives you exactly what's on the tin. It's an old man. He goes to sea, faces a big struggle. Is very, he demonstrates perseverance. He both wins and loses in dramatic fashion. And yeah, that's the entire story, but it's done so well. Hemingway's very concise, tight phrasing is much deeper than the word count really is. It's a book that I think most people have probably read at some point during school, but I think it's worthwhile going back. I actually would love to see a follow-up to this book where they focus on the young boy that helps out the old man. For whatever reason, that young boy stuck in my head, wondering whatever happened to him when the book was over. The next one is Before and Laughter by Jimmy Carr. I gave this one a 4.25 out of 5. It's a part biography, part self-help, and full of kind of like just blunt advice that you wish you had a good friend that would give these pieces of advice to you. You're going to laugh. You'll think quite a bit. You'll laugh some more. It was a book that I would think about things that he mentioned long after I stopped listening to it. I would recommend listening to the audiobook first. Jimmy narrates it, and it's really well done. But then buy a physical copy, because it's the way that this book is laid out. You could probably open it to just about any page, and on that page will be a pearl of wisdom that I think applies to most people's life. It's just a really, really good self-help book mixed with an autobiography. And yeah, lots of cool stories, lots of fun laughs, and just good perspective on life. So I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, check it out. And then the last one for this tier is A Parade of Horribles, which is the 8th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I gave this one a 4.0 out of 5. Book 6 and 7 in this series, it kind of dipped a little bit for me. They would have probably fallen down one tier below this. But book 8 brings it back up to this tier, and it's reminding me of why I really like this series to begin with. Dinneman managed to get 2 really funny books out this year, both this and Operation Bounce House. Both are really, really good. If you have listened to any of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I do say listen because it's a book I think deserves to be listened to as an audiobook rather than read as a book. If you've done any of Dungeon Crawler Carl, you'll like Parade of Horribles. If you haven't, you should definitely go and listen to it if you are in the realm of liking funny sci-fi /RPG/ just wacky stuff with a cast of characters that you'll just fall in love with. It's one of those rare books where the audio production vastly outpaces the print book, especially when you realize that the entire book is narrated by one person, which if I didn't tell you that, you wouldn't think it was, but it is, and it's so well done. So yeah, Parade of Horribles is a return to form for Dungeon Crawler Carl. Highly recommend. Did like it quite a bit. And we're on to the last 3 books. I'm not sure how long this has been going, but it feels like it's been going a little while, so thank you for sticking with me. The last 3 books that I give as instant recommendations. First is Recursion by Blake Crouch. Crouch to me is a master of, perfectly paced, really, cerebral, mind-bending sci-fi stories. And this is just another one of those that kept me on the edge of my seat the whole way through. It's a time travel story done completely through memory. And it hits you with this great messaging about nostalgia and the concept of what, memory actually is. There was tons of times where I would be driving home from work and I would pull into the driveway while listening to this book and then just sit in my truck for 10 minutes because I didn't want to get out because the book was too good and I couldn't get out until a chapter ended or what have you. If you like his other books like Dark Matter, you'll love this one. If you like sci-fi at all, or if you want to have a different spin on time travel that's done smartly, listen to Recursion or read Recursion. It was amazing. Really, really liked it. Next book up is Jade War. It's book 2 of the Greenbone Saga series by Fonda Lee. I gave this one a 4.75 out of 5. This is a really, really cool world. It's a fantasy setting that's kind of based on our world, but in 1980s style, centered around Asia, and definitely centered on the small island in Asia that has managed to build up a monopoly on this magical jade that grants people superhuman powers. It's just so good. It's a sweeping like crime family mafia style story. Uh, Book one was really establishing this world and what's going on, and getting you invested with a lot of the characters. And then Jade War has expanded it and made it more of like a geopolitical or international political story as well. And again, the pacing is just bang on, and you deeply care about these characters and what's happening to them. And yeah, I can't wait to finish this series later this year. Fonda Lee has knocked it out of the park with book two, so I can't wait to see what she does with book three. And highly recommend it if you enjoy really, really well paced fantasy stories with great combat and a cool world building. And yeah, can't recommend it enough. Right up there. And then the only book that I've read thus far this year that's gotten a perfect 5 out of 5 from me is a very short children's story written by a Frenchman about a stranded pilot who meets a young prince from another planet. And as they interact, the prince highlights all the absurd things that adults do that they consider normal. And this point of the story is to remind us how a child views the world and how different it is from how we view it. And it's one of those books where I think a person should read it at multiple times throughout their life. They should read it as a child. They should read it as a teen. They should read it as an adult. And then they should read it as an elderly adult. And I think you will get something different out of it every single time you read it. You'll laugh. You'll smile at the absurdity of things. If you're like me, you'll probably be a little bit teary-eyed at certain points. It's very short. Almost like Hemingway, where he doesn't waste any words, but it's also just profoundly beautiful. As soon as I finished this book, I listened to it in audio format. I stopped my audiobook player, opened up my Amazon app, and bought a physical copy for my son. Just such a good short story. It's an easy read, highly, highly recommend. And then sharing it with other people that's in your life, I think is important. It was so good. So those are the 17 books I've read thus far this year. Hopefully this didn't go too long and it was entertaining to listen to, or at least informative to listen to. What I plan on reading here in the month of June is The Blade itself, which is the start of a series. It's like a grim, dark fantasy series. This is How You Lose a Time War, which is a time travel love story of sorts. Sapiens, which is a nonfiction book kind of showing the history of everything that humans have done, which I'm interested to see how they fit that into a single book. And then What Made Maddie Run, which is a study of mental health on young athletes. So yeah, those are what I'm reading here in June. If you enjoyed this, let me know if any of these books that I've mentioned or talked about you've also read, or if there's anything from any of these that I've talked about that's made you want to read them. If you want me to follow up on this again in a shorter time period, maybe in a couple months, or maybe at the end of the year, I can do that again and see how many more books we get in. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought. And, remember, never let your caps dry out. Stay safe. Have fun. We'll talk again soon. Take care.